It's almost been 2 weeks now. DC Dual Force put out its reveal trailer announcing that the game would be coming soon to PC. They also made subtle announcement that the game would have PvP, which I believe was the first confirmation of PvP. I haven't seen that contradicted anywhere, so I'm going to continue to run with that as though it's fact. But this wasn't even their first trailer. The game was actually announced a very long time ago, back in October of 2022. The game was originally planned to be released that year, and it was announced to be in development. Ultimately, the game was pushed back to 2023, obviously. In my very first video about Dual Force, I claimed that there was no new footage in the new trailer, which is sort of true, but it's also sort of not true. There are actually some differences between the two trailers, and I thought it would be fun to go over each of those changes. Throughout this video, I'll use different color coding to show you what I'm talking about, but on the left side of the screen, you'll be looking at the original trailer, and on the right side of the screen, you will be looking at the new trailer. Let me know if there's any differences between the two trailers that I didn't spot along the way, and let's get straight into it. The first notable thing we see in either trailer is Batman, and we see our first big difference. In the original trailer, the game's art was made up of each of the respective characters' render, so it was more or less an empty background. That background was filled in with a blue gradient background with some streak effects running through it, and I think it actually looked pretty nice. One thing I really liked about that original direction was the 3D effect that happened. You can kind of see it a lot on Batman here, and you'll see it a lot in the next shot that we look at. It's almost like there's a world inside of the card, similar to the parallax effect we have in Snap, but quite a bit different, I think. Rather than the card art reaching out from inside the card, it's almost like the card is like hollowed out and you could reach in if you wanted to. But in the recent trailer, instead of having that blue background, cards have their own individual unique background art. Ultimately, I do think the unique background art does look quite a bit nicer, especially if that's going to be the general art direction of all of the cards, not just leader cards. While this isn't a difference in the trailers, but because we've been talking about the cards so much, I do want to mention this. Batman in the trailers is significantly different to the version that we've seen on the Dual Force website. On the Dual Force website, Batman's second ability is looking for gadgets, and he gets a unique reward for finding a gadget in those top 3 cards. While the version in both trailers says nothing about gadgets. There's nothing listed about gadgets on Batman's second ability or anywhere on his card at all. Another interesting note is that the website version of the card says that Batman gains charge, but the version in the trailers gives the player what I'm assuming is the icon for charge. So either there's been a functionality switch or perhaps just a terminology switch. Perhaps at some point in development, charge was leader specific, so I could have one leader have 5 charge and my other leader have 2 charge, rather than just me having access to, say, 6 charge and being able to spend that on whichever leader I want. And during development, maybe that's swapped around, or perhaps this is just a simple terminology change. We're gonna have to wait until we get more news to be able to find out which one of these versions of Batman is more quote-unquote up-to-date, because the website version has always been the way it is, but the most recent trailer still has the version in the original trailer, so at some point during development, these cards changed. My current guess is that the version we see in trailers is closer to the version that we'll get on release. Oh, also, Batman went down to 14 health from the 17 that we see on the website. In the next shot, we get our first look at Superman. Again, in the first trailer, he has that hollowed out blue background, which I must say looks really nice on Superman. If it was going to work for any character, it would work for Superman, right? Yet again, we don't see a difference between either Superman in either trailer, but we do see a difference on the website. Website Superman has 19 health, whereas both of the trailers depict Superman having 18 health. I wonder which one of those is more up to date. My guess is that the trailer is always going to be more up to date than the website, because they probably just had a handful of assets laying around. Or perhaps maybe the website's more up to date than the trailers, because the trailers, they had to get 3-dimensional assets made, and then when they went to go re-release the trailer, they just didn't update anything. I'm not sure. Like I said before, I think the blue effect looks really nice on this old shot. Maybe we could end up seeing this blue hollowed out effect as some type of split effect akin to Marvel Snap's Gold or Inkify, or some type of foil or gold system, something like that, to make our cards look like that, because again, I think it does look really cool. Or maybe they're just skins and variants. Maybe these blue hollowed out backgrounds are variants you can buy for the base version of cards. Or maybe I'm just really coping because I like the way it looks. I don't know. The next shot has Wonder Woman in it, and she definitely has the most changes of any card. You won't recognize that in either of the trailers. In fact, the only difference between the two in the trailers is her artwork, and I must say, I love her new artwork. It looks fantastic. But if you go to their old Twitter account, you'll see a different Wonder Woman. This Wonder Woman on Twitter only had 1 ability, which would be the first time that we've ever seen a leader with just a single ability, and she had a passive keyword, Aura. The next time a card with Aura would be affected by an enemy action, it instead loses Aura. So she has this kind of spell shield to protect her. Her one and only ability does seem really good though. It gives her +3 attack and an additional attack that she gets to keep permanently. That's a super scary effect, not just because it infinitely scales her, right? By the end of the game, she could have just 10 attack built into her, but also a permanent attack value on a leader would be likely a very powerful effect, because if an enemy attacks into my leader and it has an attack value, they're going to receive damage. You're disincentivized as the opponent versing Wonder Woman to attack Wonder Woman because she has a default attack value, so I'm going to receive damage for attacking Wonder Woman. But juxtaposed to that, you're incentivized to attack Wonder Woman early to prevent her scaling too much and getting too much attack value. I might be wrong about my assumption of attacking into a leader with an attack value, so that could completely break that dichotomy, but either way, the effect seems pretty good. I definitely think Wonder Woman was reworked though, because if she wasn't, I would expect the new trailer to reflect that. Unless, of course, they just reused the old 3D asset, in which case I guess the point's a little bit moot. Interesting to know that Wonder Woman's artwork has changed 3 times. We see the original trailer using that blue background with a character render, then we have the Twitter artwork, and now we have the artwork from the new trailer, and I definitely think the artwork from the new trailer is the best. The next shot is all about the Flash, and surprisingly, the Flash has seen no changes across either trailer, obviously with the exception of the artwork change, and we haven't seen any text updates to the Flash on the website, on Twitter, or anything like that, which is strange to me because you would think of all of the cards that would see changes and reworks and rebalancing throughout development, you would expect it to be a card like the Flash because he's so unique. He has an ability that costs 4 charge, which is double what we've seen of any other character, and it goes so far as to give you an additional turn. It doesn't get any crazier than that, at least from what we've seen. So I would imagine that the Flash probably did see quite a bit of tweaking throughout development, but perhaps maybe that was done earlier on, or perhaps maybe it's been done before we've seen any updates. So perhaps the version of the Flash we get at release is going to be really different than the version we saw in either of these 2 trailers. I do think his artwork is a big overall improvement though. I like this wide shot because it lets us really look at the 2 differences between the different art styles. I really do hope that this old style of effect, again, that hollow blue gradient background thing that's happening on the old trailer, I really hope we get that as some type of effect in the game that we can use because, again, I think it looks quite nice. I think it really depends on the character and the character render they're using, but for the most part, I really do like that effect. I wouldn't want it on every card, but I would like that to be an option that I can earn or perhaps pay for or something like that. And in the original trailer, the closing shot was coming soon in 2022. Oh, how I wish that were true. But I understand I'd much rather be patient and wait for the game for it to be the best it can be. If they took a almost year-long delay, they probably did it for a good reason and we're probably going to get a much better game as a result. So I'm glad that we didn't get it in 2022 as much as I would have loved to have. Perhaps even the reason we got the delay was because they were adding PvP, which is a mode that pretty much single-handedly got me as excited about the game as I am currently. While this recent trailer simply says coming soon with an exclamation mark, my hope is that it's coming very soon, or at least sooner rather than later. The only other change on this screen is that Cryptozoic is no longer featured on the screen. Instead, CCG Labs Incorporated is mentioned. Truth be told, I really don't know much about CCG Labs, but I've been informed that it's a group of very talented people. It's still strange to me that Cryptozoic wouldn't be mentioned on the end screen regardless of whatever's going on there, because from what I understand, they are, or at the very least they were, the developers of the game. And they should still be the developers of the game because they were very recently talking about how there was going to be news about the game coming soon, and that was before we got the trailer. So my assumption is that they are definitely still involved in development. They are still working on the game, so it is strange to not mention them. It's also unclear to me what CCG's lab role is going to be. They haven't done any big development updates since they released the trailer, so we're still a little bit unclear on what that is. And I don't think there's much reason or much value in speculating about each of the moving parts here, you know, what company's playing what role. We do know that Yuke's is publishing, but outside of that, yeah, I just don't think it's worth spending too much mental power. I just thought it was at least worth mentioning while we were comparing the 2 trailers. Anyway, let me know if you gained any value from this video. Let me know if you enjoyed it. I'm going to close things out here. Thank you so much for watching. Keep being awesome, and I'll catch you in the next one.